Good morning, good morning, good morning. I want to welcome everybody to today's committee hearing. It's October 1st, 2008. We have several items on the agenda that I think we can move as if it were on the consent calendar. I do not have a quorum as of yet, so all of the action that we will take immediately will be communicated from the chair. I know I had mentioned to some of you that were here before and to my staff, the staff, how excited I was about being a grandfather for the first time. And so I babysit all alone last week, and the little sucker got me sick. So I tell you, so the joys of being a grandparent. Okay, with that said, Ms. Barclay, why don't we, in fact, Item 4, we're going to continue it, so I don't see any need in reading Item 4. Let's go to Item 5.
Good morning, Meg Barclay with the CLA's office. Item 5 are reports from the Community Redevelopment Agency and the Chief Legislative Analyst and a resolution relative to the transfer of Assembly Bill 1290 funds to the Department of General Services to purchase and install security cameras at the Martin Luther King Jr. Park and the Mary McLeod Bethune Library.
Okay, then as a communique from the chair, we'll adopt the CLA report, and that brings us to Item 6.
Item 6 is a report from the Community Redevelopment Agency and a resolution relative to a cooperation agreement between the CRA and the Bureau of Street Lighting for a new decorative street lighting within the Pacific Corridor redevelopment project area. We recommend that this item be continued at this time.
Okay, then without objection, we will continue this item. Item 7.
Item 7 are reports from the CRA and the CLA relative to an affordable housing agreement to create affordable housing in furtherance of the community benefits program from the Los Angeles Sports and Entertainment District Development Agreement.
Okay, as a communique from the chair, we'll adopt the CLA report on Item 7. Item 8.
Item 8 are reports from the Los Angeles Housing Department and the City Administrative Officer and a resolution relative to tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds for the 3 Courtyards apartment project.
Okay, Item 8 is a communique from the chair. We'll adopt the CAO report. Item 9.
Item 9 is a motion, Garcetti Reyes, relative to the implementation of the tenant habitability program.
Okay, now, what other members sit on this committee with me, Ms. Barclay? I'm having a senior moment. I can't remember their names.
Mr. Garcetti, Mr. Reyes, Ms. Perry, and Mr. Cardenas.
Okay, so, Mr. Clerk, what do you think? Since Garcetti and Reyes sit on the committee, should we move it?
I think they're good for it, sir.
Okay, then without objection, as a communique from the chair, we'll adopt that motion. Okay, Item 10.
Item 10 is a motion, Garcetti Reyes, relative to expanding the Los Angeles State Enterprise Zone to include the Echo Park area.
Okay, now, enough is enough. Okay, so without objection, we'll adopt the motion as a communique from the chair. Okay, we have one more motion.
All right. Item 11 is a motion, Perry Reyes, relative to authorizing the CLA to sign the transfer of floor area rights documents for the Park 5th mixed-use project.
Okay, well, Reyes is on the committee, and so is, you made me remember Ms. Perry is, so I will gladly, as a communique from the chair, adopt this motion as well. Now, I'm trying to wait a little bit. It's my understanding that one of our commissioners aren't here at this point, so what I think I'm going to do is take public comment, Mr. City Attorney, if I may, and we have a card from my friend Chuck Tennant. If you could please come forward, Chuck. And it's always a pleasure to see you.
It is a pleasure. Chuck Tennant, this housing committee here, I have a suggestion.
Chuck, wait 1 second. Hold his time. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Reyes, who just got 2 motions passed without even being here. Give him a round of applause. The great Ed Reyes. Good to see you, my friend. Chuck, go on. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. I'll give you 3 seconds. Okay, go on.
have a permanent item on the agenda where Mercedes Marquez or a decision maker from the Housing Department shows up and identifies one or more problems that the Housing Department has found and what they have done to resolve it, what programs are available and the current status, and listen to any major problems from the public. In this way, the Housing Committee and the Housing Department could be advised of issues raised by the public, and the agenda, more people would show up. And a couple of examples, things like tenants in conversions that have a right to terminate their lease and get their relocation monies once the conversion has been approved. Well, the reason, better tenant information about these rights. People need to know that they can do this, and a lot of people don't, and I've talked to a lot of them. Another issue, maybe the Housing Department has to return Ellis Act declarations that are fraudulent, phony, or contrary to law, and they don't really do it. One other thing, I see Tony Cardenas is not here, but maybe you could enlighten me on this, but if a developer has an approval for 74 condos and they lose their construction loan, but they're desperate to sell and they list it with a real estate agent, okay. But if the real estate agent lists it as 78 condos and that adds on there 146 apartments, and the developer has not applied for it, and yet the real estate agent, RE/MAX, is offering both, which to me would be real estate fraud. How can you offer that it can be 146 apartments when there isn't even an approval? Are they allowed to do both things? Okay, one last final thing there. It was nice to see one of Herb's staff at Janice Hahn's Gang Prevention Task Force to talk about Project SAVE and that interaction is wonderful. And I was told that Janice Hahn thinks that Herb was not for TOPA, and I understand that Herb is, and I know he is, but maybe Herb needs to tell Janice so she knows that.
He said, she said, okay.
He
Thank
said,
you.
she said.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you. And
All right, so what I think we will do at this point in time, we've just been joined by Ms. Perry, Councilmember Perry, and Council President Eric Garcetti, so we do have a quorum. Okay, and unless there are some concerns where it relates to items 4 through 11, members, we've already acted on those as a communique from the chair. And if there's no objection, Mr. City Attorney, let's just move that out of committee, or?
That's fine, except that items 4 and 6 were continued, otherwise the rest would be approval items.
So we'll move those other than items 4 and 6 that were continued. Okay, with that, that brings us to items. What I want to do is take items 1 and 2 together. It's my understanding that both appointees are here. Ms. Barclay, if you could read the communication and call them in.
Item number 1 is a communication from the Council President relative to the appointment of Ms. Lula Bailey Balton to the Industrial Development Authority Board of Directors for the term ending June 30th, 2010. Item 2 is a communication from the Council President relative to the appointment of Ms. Nina Walton to the Industrial Development Board of Directors for the term ending June 30th, 2010.
Okay, Ms. Walton and Ms. Balton, please come forward. Good morning. I welcome you both here. I'm going to, would you like to say something?
No, go ahead.
No.
Chair, I'll defer to you.
No, it's okay.
These are great
Okay.
nominees. I'll speak more about them in council when we have full council, but I'm very excited you both agreed to step up. This is an amazing way to get us to spur economic growth, especially now when we're looking at bonding authority being something quite difficult for cities to obtain in this financial crisis. And your work is at West Angeles, and Ms. Walton, your work at USC, and the grounding that you have in these issues too, I think will be extraordinary appointments. So I just would offer them to the committee, and with my fullest recommendation and my deep thanks for both of you for serving.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garcetti. I guess we'll do this in alpha order, so we'll start with Walton, and Walton, you'll be the closer. So, Lula, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're looking forward to this appointment. And good morning.
Good morning, and again, thank you for this opportunity. I have committed my adult life to the struggle of justice and economic development, and the opportunity to serve in a way that would engage businesses, retain them, relocate them here to create livable wage jobs is what I do. I founded and run a church-based economic development corporation in West Angeles, and we have been in the struggle for 15 years there. My previous experience is in the practice of law, and before that I was a college professor, but all of my interest has been in the struggle for poor and working class people to participate in the economy of the best system. Capitalism works when everybody plays, and so finding ways to engage business, to engage the members, the citizens of Los Angeles City is what my life's work is about. So, I hope that I would be able to assume this. There are things that I don't know about bonding that I'm relatively able to learn. I've demonstrated that by just living a long time. But the other areas are things that I know very well. I know Los Angeles. I arrived in 1965, August 12th, actually, the day the riot started, and have grown to know Los Angeles pretty much inside and out. And one of the issues that I think, and you spoke to it already, Mr. Garcetti, is how do we get all of the people here to be able to participate in the economy that is and will be Los Angeles. So that's what I commit to do if I'm accepted.
Thank you.
I didn't know about the college professor part.
13 years.
Where?
Delaware State, Roosevelt University, Loyola Marymount, El Camino.
Well, Delaware State, I went to Lincoln University.
So did my grandfather, and
we
great.
used to,
The one in Pennsylvania?
we used to play against them.
What are you saying about the chairman's age?
Are we talking football?
Grade school? No, there was basketball.
Basketball.
When I went to Lincoln, they didn't have a football team. They had discontinued it. They just started it, I think, this season, so it's back. But it's a small world. Delaware State was not that far from us.
No.
Anyway, so we go from Miss Balton to Miss Walton. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. So I am a professor at USC. I've just joined the law faculty at USC, but I am also an economist. I finished my PhD at UCLA last June. I also have a master's in public policy from UCLA. So I am absolutely thrilled to be given an opportunity to serve on the board of the IDA because my research looks particularly at incentives of firms. So one thing that I think is wonderful that the bonds do is they provide an incentive for firms to come and relocate in the city of Los Angeles. But from a policy perspective, using those incentives to get companies to behave in the ways that you want them to. So using that as a quid pro quo in furtherance of public policy is something that I've thought a lot about. I teach corporate governance. I teach business organizations at USC, and I'm absolutely excited to be here. I became a citizen last year.
Congratulations.
I'm Australian.
Congratulations.
And so I'm particularly happy to be able to, serve the community in this way.
Okay, so the action that's going to be taken allegedly tonight by the United States Senate, is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Oh, that's a complex question. I think the Congress and the Senate have to do something. I'm not convinced this is the right package, but the risks of not doing anything outweigh the risks of doing something at this point. And I would have hoped that the thing that I was particularly disappointed about with the package is the lack of very tangible help for homeowners. And I think until you figure out a way to stop the foreclosures and to stem the reduction in housing prices, it's a pretty short-term fix, and there's going to be a lot of pain. So I think it's definitely suboptimal, but it's better to do something than not.
So it beats a blank.
Sorry?
No.
It's a blank.
Mr. Garcetti,
good.
Mr. Reyes, Ms. Perry? Ready to vote. Okay, then without objection, we will recommend that Dr. Balton and Ms. Walton to the full council a little after 10 today. So thank you.
Okay. We'll see you downstairs. Thanks.
I believe brings us to item 3. Ms. Barclay, if you could read item 3.
Item 3 is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Ms. Cynthia Ibarra to the Relocation Appeals Board for the term ending April 2nd, 2009.
Please come forward. Did you teach at Delaware State too?
No, I did not. No, I did not.
Okay, welcome, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and why it is you have a desire to give something back to the community.
Thank you. Well, I've been born and raised in the San Fernando Valley. I've been there all my life. I work there. Graduated from Cal State Northridge University with health administration and minors in gerontology and marketing. I currently work at Valley Economic Development Center, VEDC. Been there 7 years, mainly in the marketing area, now managing a statewide program with Wachovia, now Citigroup. So that was a statewide business assistance program, and what we did was bring business assistance services like we do in LA across the state of California. So I've been doing that for the last year.
Well, we've just been joined by Councilman Tony Cardenas. Mr. Cardenas, we have a able-bodied resident of that born and raised in the San Fernando Valley that's up for appointment at this point in time. Would this be your first
Yes.
appointment? So are you excited about it?
Yes, it's only my second time at City Hall, so I'm really excited.
Mr. Cardenas or Mr. Garcetti, any questions?
I'm
Mr.
good.
Reyes?
Impressive.
Good luck to you.
Ready to vote?
I'm-
I move the nomination.
Okay, then without objection, we will recommend Ms. Ibarra to the full council.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your service.
Ms. Barclay, I think that brings us to items 12A and 12B. If you could read those items.
Item 12A is a presentation by the CRA relative to all future plan amendments and adoptions being prepared and their status. And item 12B is a motion, Huizar Reyes, CRA and CLA reports relative to merging the Adelante East Side redevelopment project area and the Los Angeles County Whiteside redevelopment project area.
Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Glenn Wasserman. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Community Redevelopment Agency. I'm here to report on the status of a number of redevelopment plan adoption, amendment, and merger activities that the Redevelopment Agency is currently in the process of pursuing or at the very beginning of that process. The Community Redevelopment Law establishes a system where redevelopment cities and counties, through their redevelopment agency, can carry out redevelopment activities in redevelopment project areas adopted pursuant to state law. Those redevelopment plans all have time limits on them. There's time limits on the use of eminent domain. There's a time limit on the authority of redevelopment agency to incur indebtedness. There's a time limit on the effectiveness of the redevelopment plan. Time limits on the time period to receive tax increment to repay that indebtedness. In addition, there are certain specific dollar limits. There's a dollar limit on the amount of bonded indebtedness that the agency can incur. In many of our redevelopment project areas, we are approaching those limits. And it's timely and appropriate for us to begin the process, the very complicated administrative process of going through all the steps to either adopt new redevelopment plans when that's appropriate, or extend those time limits where law permits that to be done in order to complete the redevelopment efforts that are undergoing in our communities. I'm prepared to walk through the 10 efforts that we have begun with you. Some of these are relatively far along in the process, at least one or two of them are. Most of them are very preliminary, and we've just begun the complicated process of determining whether the conditions exist that would permit us to pursue these. The first effort is in the East San Fernando Valley, and that's our Laurel Canyon redevelopment project area that was adopted as an earthquake disaster assistance project after the Northridge earthquake, and is primarily for the redevelopment of the Valley Plaza Shopping Center. There we have taken a number of preliminary steps and have begun the environmental impact report and are now at the point where we're examining alternatives to the environmental impact report. We've been working very closely with CD2, and this is the first one where we're hopeful that in 2009 we'll be able to bring a proposed redevelopment plan to the council for consideration. Also in our East Valley region, we are looking at the adoption of a new redevelopment plan for the Pacoima Panorama City and other portions of the Northeast Valley. Our current redevelopment plan that's currently in effect was also adopted after the Northridge earthquake. Will be reaching its time limits shortly. Most specifically, the time limit on incurring indebtedness will expire at the end of 2009. This is a lengthy process to adopt a redevelopment plan, so we've begun that process now of examining the physical conditions in the redevelopment project area as well as surrounding areas that appear to meet the requirements for the physical and economic conditions that state law defines as blighted, and we'll be pursuing that in the East Valley. Mr. Chairman, in your district, we're looking at proposed amendments to the Mid-City and Wilshire Center Koreatown redevelopment project areas, and there we'll be looking to extend the time limit on incurring indebtedness, which is one step that the law permits us to do for redevelopment plans adopted after 1994, as well as increasing the limit on bonded indebtedness, examining the possibility of merging those two redevelopment project areas, and also examining the restoration of eminent domain authority.
How long will it take before we get to get an answer where it relates to the merger?
That's part of a community outreach process that we've begun, and a decision should be made sometime within 6 months or so on that.
Continue.
Whether we're going to proceed in that direction.
Continue.
In our East Side region, item number 12B addresses this one. It's unique as far as I know in the state of California, and that's to merge a city redevelopment project area with a county redevelopment project area. And our Adelante East Side project area is adjacent to the county's Whiteside redevelopment project. The purpose of this would be to coordinate the city and the county's redevelopment efforts for biomedical technology center in that area. And the regional administrator is here, and as part of 12B can brief you with more detail on this one. The next one is a proposed amendment to the CD9 Corridors redevelopment plan. There to help facilitate the development of the Washington Boulevard RFP properties and to carry out our work program, we're proposing to extend the time limits on incurring indebtedness, to increase the the dollar limit on bonded indebtedness, to restore and extend the expired power of eminent domain, and also to consider amending some of the land use provisions of the redevelopment plan to make it easier and provide more certainty for development that's otherwise permitted by city rules. This and all the other plans that I'll mention are at pretty preliminary stages where our board has has asked us to take to the City Council a request for authorization to proceed, and those requests will be coming to the Council shortly. In South Los Angeles, we are looking at the proposed merger of 7 very geographically small project areas into a larger area that simply by the merging of them would give us more capacity to carry out our work program. The key issue here is bonding capacity, and assuming that the markets settle down and that we will be able to proceed with issuing bonds in the future, the bond market looks more favorably at a larger area where there's more security, there's tax increment being generated by more properties than where there's a very small geographic area where...
So which areas are you going to merge?
This is the Broadway Manchester project area, Crenshaw and Crenshaw-Slauson project areas, the Exposition University Park redevelopment project, the Normandy 5 project area, Vermont Manchester project area, and Western Slauson project area. And Exposition University Park, there's some discussions now about which portions of that project might be included and might be excluded from the merged project area. Also in South Los Angeles, we're beginning to look at the area around the Watts Corridors redevelopment project area. This would be the expansion of that project into areas that are not currently within redevelopment project areas, including potentially the public housing projects that are undergoing redevelopment by the Housing Authority. And there we think there's some real potential for the Redevelopment Agency and the Housing Authority to work together to maximize our ability to redevelop that area. In LA Harbor, we have a proposed amendment to the Beacon Street project and that would be we may or may not go forward with this. I think just late last week we were reconsidering whether we're going to do this, but that would be what's called a simple amendment, where all we do is consider changing some of the land use restrictions that are in the redevelopment plan. We wouldn't wouldn't be able to extend any time limits or extend
Those are zoning changes?
project area. Excuse me.
Those are zoning changes, essentially, or what do you mean by land use?
No, it would be a situation where the redevelopment plan would catch up to the
Current.
city community plan and zoning. Also, in the harbor region, we're looking at a proposed amendment to the Wilmington Industrial redevelopment plan to expand that project area into areas of surrounding areas that we think are contain the economic and physical conditions that require redevelopment. These are currently undergoing very preliminary review, where literally staff is going out and driving block by block and taking notes on the conditions in that area. And finally, in the West Valley region, the current redevelopment plan was also adopted as an earthquake disaster assistance project, and we will be reaching some of our time limits shortly. So we're looking at the existing project areas in Reseda and Canoga Park and surrounding areas to determine if there are conditions that would merit a new redevelopment plan to carry out redevelopment in that area. And that concludes my report, and I'll be happy to take questions. And we have representatives from each of these project areas here who can probably be more detailed than I am.
We'll start off with Ms. Perry.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, and I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. I wanted to put some questions on the record so that we can have the agency come back and give us a report on that, and I can make sure that you get emailed the questions later so you have a record of it. The questions I have are as follows. Have all the project areas that are proposed to increase their debt limit, have they currently incurred all allowed debt? Want a risk analysis. What are the risks associated with increasing debt limits for project areas when the agency is not allowed to extend the time and the question is whether it's allowed to collect tax increment to repay this debt. Do all the project areas currently generate enough revenue to support the cost of preparing and adopting these proposed plan amendments? And if not, how will these activities be supported in areas where funds are not available? If sufficient funds are not available to support all of these amendments concurrently, I'd like to know how the agency will prioritize which amendments to pursue, and the state budget's impact on the agency budget, how that affects all of this and the agency's ability to finance these plan amendments. And I just want to say publicly, I have not made a decision on whether or not I'm going to support the proposed merger of the South Los Angeles project areas. And I just want to say that very clearly and make a suggestion to the chair that we may even want to have a community meeting at the Epic Center and include CD 8, 9, 10, and possibly 15. I'm not comfortable necessarily even voting on whether or not to proceed, since this is such a cataclysmic shift in the way that we may work in the future until the public has had a chance to participate more fully in the discussion, and that the appropriate time may be after we get the responses to these questions on the record and whether or not they've been answered more fully, because I think these are questions I have, and I'm certain that while I only have small bits of this proposed merger on almost across the street, basically, I still think that these are questions that need to be answered before I can even proceed with a fully informed vote. So I will make sure that the staff person emails you the questions, and I would like to ask that the agency provide a status report and the agency's mid-year budget adjustment relative to the status of each proposed amendment and the impact of plan amendment activities on the agency budget, so that we can really operate within a very well-framed discussion on what is, what isn't, what the impacts will be, what the risks are, what the pros are, what the cons are, and be able to take that package at least. And I'm not saying that everybody in the committee would want to do this, but for me, that is what I would like to do, is to take it to the community and get some response and some input. So I will make sure to have my staff person get your card and email you that today.
Yeah, I don't view that as problematic. I mean, once you respond to the questions, then we'll discuss and see if we can get some consensus about some joint meeting. That doesn't pose a problem to me.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Reyes.
Sure.
I'm looking at the documents that were submitted at the Adelante East Side P plan amendment and merger. There's a reference on page 4 that the PAC does not recommend approval of these ministerial actions given concerns about the ability of the city and the county to equitably collaborate on current lack of information regarding. Can we just speak to that and the posture of the council office regarding that discretion?
Thank you. Councilmember, I'm Steve Valenzuela with the CRA. Just a little bit further background on the proposed Adelante merger with the county's Whiteside project. As Mr. Wassman indicated, this is different than the proposed mergers that are being considered generally in the city, where you merge city redevelopment projects with other city redevelopment projects. This is an innovative and a very challenging process that we're going through. It was initiated several years ago or more by the then council member, now Mayor Villaraigosa, in discussions with County Supervisor Molina about trying to work together to coordinate the redevelopment of blighted industrial and environmentally challenged sites in the northeast portion of the city. Within the community of El Sereno, the Northeast Community Plan, there is a sliver along Main Street that's part of CD1. The majority of the properties are located within Council District 14.
I was asking about that later, but go ahead.
And so these proposed actions that are part of Agenda Item 12B seek authorization from the council to to basically expedite the processing of a plan amendment and to declare that the actions that are described in the attached resolution are ministerial and not subject to the council oversight ordinance in order to allow the efficient and expedient preparation of the plan documents to be presented at a future joint hearing between the City Council and the CRA Board of Commissioners. The activities are being funded entirely by Adelante project resources. There are no other resources being used to pay for this. The proposed merger does not incorporate any new territory. We're not extending the term of the redevelopment plan, adding additional powers, so it's a fairly straightforward merger of two existing redevelopment projects. Finally, the county has already taken actions when it adopted the Whiteside project in 2006 to provide for the automatic merger upon the city council's and board's approval. We took this same action prior to our board considered in June to our project area committee, not for an up or down vote on the wisdom of the merger, but merely to allow for this project planning to continue and for the information to be developed so that informed decisions could be made. At that time, the PAC felt that there was not enough information for them to render an opinion, so they basically did not support it. We are conscious of that, and in fact, we were instructed by our board when it took up this matter in June to engage in a very robust community outreach program, which we're now implementing. We intend to communicate clearly to the PAC and to other stakeholders, both the business community and residential community in the affected areas, in the focus area, as well as throughout Boyle Heights. We'll also be working with your office to identify organizations in the greater Lincoln Heights area that are currently affected given the adjacency to this proposed area. So yes, the PAC took a position of not recommending it to our board back in June. We see that as an opportunity to do further outreach. We intend to do that, and we'll be conducting aggressive outreach over the next several months.
So I'll play devil's advocate here, okay? We take action, the council takes action, we move this forward. You're doing your outreach. What if the PAC still doesn't want to do this? Is it more of a gesture of courtesy? Are we taking them? Are we giving them the value that I think they deserve if they still don't agree? Because isn't it after the fact? Wouldn't they be saying, well, why are we meeting? Why this outreach if the council already made their
all that's being requested today, council members, for the council to continue to authorize the CRA staff to continue the planning activities related to this proposed merger. There is no action to approve or take any position with respect to the proposed merger today. It's basically to continue the planning.
This is all about process.
It's all about process so that we can prepare the preliminary report and all the other reports that are required under redevelopment
So it
law.
doesn't curtail or in any way minimize the discretion of any of the stakeholders?
Not at all, either of the community nor clearly of the council. This is an information gathering process to document it according to state law so that we have all the relevant information available to the decision makers as well as the community so that informed decisions can be made.
Well, my red flags go up when folks say we're going to assume ministerial discretion. When that happens, that means this is being fast tracked, and when that happens, that's when communities get upset. So that's why I want to be very clear for the record
Right.
that stakeholders are not being diluted in their discretion. That we're not going to ignore the various interest groups that are involved in these redevelopment areas, and that in fact we're just trying to curtail some of the more cumbersome procedures and streamline it through this process that you're suggesting today.
Exactly, and the report to council and the record that we'll produce at the joint public hearing in the future will include a summary of all of the community outreach activities that we've conducted, what the results of those activities have been. We'll summarize the key points of concern and how we attempt to mitigate them, and that'll all be part of the record so that both our board and the council are fully aware if and when they take an action on this in the future.
We just had the grand opening of 36 affordable units right there off of Main Street adjacent to this. So the big discretion as to the whole issue of the master plan and all that good stuff. That might be opening up that discussion as well, and looking forward to that. Is there a timeline or time frame to include CD1's area in this particular process?
We've not sketched out a timeline. We've hired an outreach consultant to help us put together a consistent message that we can communicate uniform, kind of consistently to all the members of the community. And I've had some discussions with your staff, and we'll be presenting some additional briefings to your office on some larger scale visioning that we have for the area, and take get guidance from you on stakeholders that you'd like us to reach out to. So we're very open to that.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the bottom line is, regardless of what the final decisions are, if we're going to be able to contemplate to make a decision at the end of the day, these processes need to go through. Otherwise, there's no decision to be made on the extension of these CRA areas, et cetera.
That's right.
Okay, so this is process that is required by our own internal requirements, or is it state requirements? Who set up this process, or is it various levels of requirements?
There are a number of very specific requirements in state law for CRA shall distribute a report to different taxing agencies, and there's a lot of shalls in the redevelopment law. And when we get to the end of this process, we need an administrative record that shows we did every one of those things. We need the City Council to acknowledge and to agree that we don't need to come to City Council for specific approval of each distribution of a document that state law requires us to do. That would, we think that would add to something that could be an 18-month process, could make that into a 2-year process if we did.
So basically what you're saying is there are certain elements and activities that need to take place. If they don't take place, then certain areas slow down, because then you have to double back and make sure that that happens so you can move forward.
That's right.
Those individual activities. And what you're saying is you should be able to administer those delineated activities and not have to come on a regular basis, on a scheduled basis, to the council, but you would be ready to come to council at a moment's notice if necessary to update us formally in a hearing like this at any time.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
See if no more questions. Ms. Barclay, is there any, or Mr. Clerk, is there any more business before this? In fact, without objection, we'll adopt the CLA report on item 12B. And with that, is there any more business before this committee?
No, sir.
No.
Then this committee is adjourned.
So let it be written.
So let it be done.